Oh, check 1, 2. Hey, check. Hey, 1. Hey, 2. Hey, check. Hey, 1. Hey, 2. Yes. Okay.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fashion for Land. I'm Ina Moja. I'm an artist and UNCCD Goodwill Ambassador. It's a privilege today to moderate this important conversation. Before our two panels, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ibrahim Chow, Executive Secretary of UNCCD, to give his opening remarks.
Good afternoon. You are all well dressed, and it's fantastic to see the colors and the varieties and the quality of the clothes that you wear and we all wear. And that is exactly land and water. Cotton production, when the clothes is coming from cotton, is one of the factors of land degradation in the world. And unfortunately, in most parts of the world, including in dry lands, but also mostly in dry lands, but in Egypt, in Sahel, we have seen what the Aral Sea has become, and all of that is connected to our production and to the way we wear clothes. So it is important that we understand that fashion is a vibrant economy. It is a growing economy, and it is certainly one of the best businesses I'm seeing growing in the world today. But it is important that we rethink the way we buy clothes and the way we dispose of them at the end of the life cycle. According to some statistics I have read, if I'm not wrong, up to 92 million tons of clothes are thrown away every year. And most of these will end in the landfills. And it is important that we actually see how we can reduce that burden on humanity. And if only 2% of our clothes are being recycled, then certainly we have a margin of growth. So this discussion here is all about fashion, how we enjoy it, but also see how we can make it more sustainable in terms of production, but more sustainable especially in terms of consumption and the life cycle in its all. So welcome to this discussion. I'm not an expert. I'm here in my capacity as Executive Secretary, not as a specialist of fashion, but I have a message to all of you to say, enjoy your clothes, but don't necessarily buy new ones if you don't need them. See how many you have in your closets, and don't be pulled into something that you are not necessarily willing to buy. I mean, you are willing to buy, but not necessarily wearing for a long period of time. I live in Germany. I know it is very easy to dispose of clothes, and most of us feel comfortable morally that we are doing something good, but it is not necessarily good by throwing away these, and they end up in other parts of the world, and they end up competing with the textile industry, local textile industry, and most of these countries that are producing cotton cannot even have a textile industry anymore. So I think we have to look at it from that perspective and see how we can have a more cohesive and more collective approach. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Executive Secretary of UNCCD. I would like to welcome now Mrs. Inger Henderson, who's the Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon. Well, coming after my brother Ibrahim, let me just begin by congratulating him and the government of Saudi Arabia for this magnificent COP. I just arrived from Busan this morning in Korea, and I have to say that it looks stunning. I also want to recognize the Sustainable Fiber Alliance and, of course, the Fashion Commission of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as the EU and the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion. Look, we just heard a few facts from Ibrahim, and I think what we need to understand is that our consumption and our production of textiles has really had that negative impact that Ibrahim spoke about on our lands, on our livelihoods, and on our health. The dyes we use, the pesticides we use, the toxics that we use, often are sprayed on, and often by women, and often without protective gear, and often women who are pregnant. And so there are lots and lots of dimensions, not just land degradation, but also the chemicals that we use. And we have to also see that clothing is important. I mean, we like to look good, and we also like to express ourselves through what we wear. But fast fashion, that throwaway fashion, I buy a t-shirt, I wear it once, I throw it away, that cannot be the way of the world. That is why the SDG 12 is so important, sustainable consumption and production. We need to have clothes, obviously, but let's buy things that last, that are made with less environmental footprint, and that's an issue. We're beginning to measure what we call textile utility, which means how long do you keep it till you throw it away? And we have seen that textile utility has gone down by 36% between 2000 and 2015, meaning that we are wearing it much less and throwing it away much faster. And that is, of course, also enabled by the sort of online purchasing, where it's so easy, click, and then it just arrives at your home, and then you can throw away other things. I live in Nairobi, Kenya, and I see what that cloth does. The clothes that people put into a container thinking they're doing good, they are doing harm. One, to the textile industry, as Ibrahim just said, but also because half of it is useless. It's your old underwear, not necessarily yours, but people throw away things that they have no business throwing in that box, and it ends in Africa, and it gets thrown out and washes into the rivers, and then our communities wash out. Our communities get flooded, and that's not what we want to see. So we need to talk about phasing out hazardous chemicals and pesticides and overuse of fertilizers for production. And we also need to think about the virtual water that goes into these garments that we produce. Because if we use that precious material, land, and we use that precious material, water, and we use that instead of growing other things, surely wearing it once or twice cannot be the way to go. We have to be much more clear-sighted about this, because we all need to eat, and we all need to have the land being fertile, and there is only that much land available. And if we spend so much land and water and other resources, including fertilizers and pesticides and insecticides, for things that we are going to wear a few times, that is a terrible, terrible waste. And so looking at fiber production, which when we look at the projections, we can see that it's expected to go up by 160 million tons by 2030 if we continue as a business as usual construct. And it's for that reason that we need to have a conversation, because we also don't want to leave anyone behind. There are lots of people, especially women, working in the garment sector, and these are important jobs, often for very poor women, who are often recent rural arrivals, and they're working under very harsh and difficult conditions. That's another conversation. So when we buy things, make sure, one, that labor rights and exploitation are not there. Two, make sure that the longevity of that which you bought is good enough, and make sure, of course, that you are buying it to keep and not for that one night out. Circular fashion is the way to go. And circular economy is the way to go, using safe and recycled materials or renewable materials, while we do that, improving soil health, sequester carbon, and rebuild biodiversity. The global advertising industry has a big impact on us. We think about things through advertising. We see ourselves in the mirror of what the advertisers tell us, and that's an important thing too. But let the advertising lean in on green. Let the advertisers lean in on sustainable. Let the advertisers lean in on justice. Let the advertisers lean in on just transition and circularity. I really enjoy that there are companies where you can buy renew. I really enjoy that there are companies that will take your old jacket back and make it into something else. I really enjoy to go to shops like that and seeing what you can do with discarded garments and making them renew. So we are beginning to see, especially especially amongst the young people in my lives, this renew, new to you kind of fashion. I encourage everyone to look at buying vintage, redesigning old clothes, creating core basics or a capsule wardrobe where you have your basics, you mix and match, and buying quality clothes. A little bit more they will cost, probably, but they will last. I have jackets that I've worn, if you look at old pictures of me 20 years ago, and they're still going strong because they're made of good quality material. And then when we look at the integration between and amongst the 3 Rio Conventions, as well as the chemical conventions, let's understand this. Biodiversity needs land to be there. We want to, of course, have as much biota on our land as possible to sequester carbon, and we want that land to be productive, and we don't want it to be toxified. So the integration amongst and between all of the conventions that we know is critical. So I'm really, really happy that this dialogue is happening here in Saudi Arabia with these important partners, because we need that global policy dialogue on textiles. We at UNEP, we've been very engaged in this area, so I've learned from my colleagues who work on this day in and day out through our textiles team. And we've launched this roadmap with a number of stakeholders, including policymakers. We're partnering in 15 countries where they're seeking to apply the roadmap. And we very much seeing interesting work, for example, in Mongolia, where they are seeking to eliminate hazardous chemicals from their fashion supply chains. And we are seeing other things, other places. That's the kind of thing that we need to have happen. And so this global policy dialogue and the global dialogue around textile is something that we very much welcome. And I really congratulate the the UNCCD. I've been in too many COPs of late. I came from Cali to Baku to Busan to here, so I've been on a long mission. But at any rate, I also congratulate our friend Mokhtar Babayev, of course. But I really do congratulate the Desertification Convention because it is shining a light on a topic that impacts us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Anderson. I would like to welcome our next panel, Joining Forces for Land-Friendly Fashion. I would like to invite on the stage His Excellency, Mr. Batulga Erkenbayer from Mongolia. Okay. Mr. Alexandre Capelli, Mr. Burak Chakmak, and Mrs. Yuna Jones. It is a privilege to have this first conversation on joining forces for land-friendly fashion. We will explore how sustainable practices in the fashion industry can help mitigate land degradation with a focus on cashmere production in Mongolia and the MENA region. I would like to start with you and ask you about what are Mongolia's key strategies for promoting sustainable land use and mitigating soil degradation, particularly in relation to cashmere production?
Wow, your question is indeed, it's about Rio Conventions, right? First of all, my state secretary just arrived in this morning, and I think he didn't feel so confident to sit here and then elaborate more because he wanted to catch up what has been discussing since the COP16 started, and we haven't wrapped up, informed him what we are discussing on sustainable land and other issues, so he didn't feel confident to come, and I apologize, but as a lead negotiator of Mongolia, well, I will try to answer your questions. Well, everyone in this room knows that Mongolia is one of the proud country to supply global Kashmir value chain, and then also at the same time the number of livestock we have and the impact of the number of livestock we have to the land management and the healthy land and healthy soil. So it's quite, for many people, many development partners always ask how Mongolia is going to balance Kashmir supply chain and sustainable land management. And we still, at home, to be honest, we're still trying to find the way to balance these two. And this year, the President of Mongolia initiated another one brilliant initiative, which called White Gold. It is to mitigate livestock, the number of, to mitigate the impact, negative impact from agriculture sector to the land through improving the production of Kashmir and the fiber. And there is a one sentence very acknowledged and appreciated by the environmental sector in Mongolia, which is sustainable production and consumption. So through sustainable production consumption pattern, we are going to maximize the quality and quantity of Kashmiri and fiber in Mongolia, while reducing the livestock number, especially the goat number, and then to increase their ecosystem and rehabilitate ecosystem. That is the initiative, current initiative, and the whole government is trying to develop the strategy, both co-beneficial to environment and light industry in Mongolia. And I think my colleague would also give the brighter news of that initiative. Mongolia used to be zero waste country in our history, and we are losing the traditional knowledge, and we are losing our way of life, those carried 1,000 years. And we are not that good at, we are not importing, we are not adapting updated technologies to improve the standard of on Kashmir and fiber both, and even the leather. And so this White Gold initiative by the president is going to scale up and going to invest more to the rural communities, more to the herder communities, and to the private sectors to engage more on this. It is, this has, maybe you might ask why I keep talking about White Gold National Initiative. There is one component, value chain. Another one is to increase the standards, to increase the standard on fiber and Kashmir and wood. The third one is to mitigate every negative impact on land. And then that's why we call it, informally, it's a synergies between 3 conventions. So I would stop here. If you want to have more questions, I would. But just it was very recent call. Shinako dragged me here, and then yeah, my half brain is on drought. Sorry.
I would love to ask you, how does Mongolia engage with local communities, farmers, and herders to ensure sustainable practices in rangeland management and land preservation?
Oh, rangeland. Can I make an announcement while
Absolutely.
holding this mic? The previous side event on rangeland, you've seen Botswana, Saudi Arabia, Mongolia, and Uruguay was sitting. And these 4, especially Botswana, Mongolia, and Uruguay, we are working to submit one proposal to this COP to decide on rangelands. We would like this COP to recognize rangelands as one of the key important priority for this COP and for this convention as well. And rangeland, as a landlocked country, rangeland should be the leverage point. If there is any synergies between UNFCCC, CBD, and the UNCCD. So, responding to your question, how we are at local level, how Mongolia is making sure that sustainable rangeland management is happening is through the herders, is through the rangers. And Mongolia is one of the countries, well, I think we are proud of engaging or adopting community-based practice, community-based conservation. That's our community-based level intervention is how we are securing, maintaining. And we have quite many communities, quite many numbers of initiatives at local level to promote, which we need to scale up with through political support. There are people restoring their land by using traditional knowledge. I'm sorry if I keep talking about traditional knowledge, but I think after attending CBD, UNFCCC, and then coming here, I think one of the things, the whole global, at this negotiation level, we are forgetting about is traditional and local knowledge and their practices to be heard, to be recognized as one of the tool, as one of the best tool to combat every single problems we are facing today. So the government already recognized community level, community-driven, local communities engagement. That is the ground level, and there we have policies which doesn't work that well sometimes. And there, government, with support of development partners, we implement projects. The very recent project we just launched before my departure to the convention COPs is ensuring ecosystem management and forest management with European Union under the forest partnership. There we are going to prioritize Kashmir to be one of the leverage or one of the key point to answer the ecological restoration through community engagement and participation. That is the drafting, that is the initial, it's the very first track. They are just started, but we are hoping this EU project would be supporting local communities and local government entities to make sure that rangeland and traditional knowledge is recognized and also emplaced and deserve their mandate and they deserve their recognition as it should be. So more like EU and Mongolia stand together to promote more sustainable Kashmir product to be exported to the European Union market. At the same time, we're also talking with Singapore and other countries to use agriculture sector, especially the Kashmir, to mitigate or as a means of tools to carbon trade. So there are lots of things happening back home, but one thing for sure is Mongolia it's a vast country with 3 million people, and half of them are herders. Without half population, we cannot do anything to implement this convention or any other conventions. So for us, the key driver is the local community-based approach.
Thank you immensely. I would like to turn to Mr. Alexandre Capelli, who's the Environmental Deputy Director at LVMH, where he spearheads sustainability initiatives across the luxury conglomerate's global operations. I would like to ask you, what strategies has LVMH adopted to reduce the environmental footprint of the fibers it sources?
Thank you so much. First, I would like to quickly come back to the opening speech. I really appreciate the circular and regenerative fashion. I will like to add high quality. I think with high quality, circular and regenerative fashion, we will achieve a very good level of sustainability. But I think that high quality is what luxury is, and it's really the way that ensure that product will last. And very likely, high quality and product that lasts is really the first criteria if we want to reduce the environmental footprint of fashion. Then second, very quickly, circular. Of course, we are all working on circularity, recycling, upcycling. I would say it's a journey. We are still far from recycling everything, but we are now implementing some solution to recycle cotton, to recycle wool. We even tried to recycle cashmere, which is not that easy. And last year, it was a collection called Prelude, which was fully made from unsold product. We still have unsold product, not that much, but still we do have some unsold product. And we have deconstruct everything coming back to the thread to destroy the initial product and create a new product. So yes, we are working on circularity. But maybe coming back to the main topic of today, land and agriculture, of course, for us, I would say it's very likely the most strategic topic. If we look at the biodiversity and water footprint of LVMH, scope 1, 2, and 3, for the scope 3, fashion is representing more than 80% of the LVMH footprint. So it's a lot. So fashion is really key for us. So we have set the target to regenerate 5 million hectares by 2030, either through our supply chain by implementing regenerative agriculture in cotton supply chain, wool supply chain, and I will come back to that. And we know that by doing so, we could achieve 1 million, 1.5 million hectares, meaning that we still need to look at 3 or 3.5 to 4 million hectares outside our supply chain. This is another topic. So coming back to our fashion supply chain, so it's mainly cotton, it's mainly wool, and of course leather, a little bit of silk, a little bit of viscose. So for now, 3 years, we have defined a regenerative agriculture program, and now we do have pilot project in every single supply chain, and the next step is to scale up how we can move from piloting to covering the whole supply chain. And I will take an illustration for cotton. Cotton for us is very likely the most used commodity in our fashion supply chain. We have a Turkish partner called Soktaş, located in the east of Turkey, you know well. And we are collaborating with them since 2019, accelerating a transition to regenerative practices. And at the beginning, at this time, the soil was very, very poor, almost destroyed. And together, we have a transition to regenerative agriculture, stop tilling, now using also soil covering every year, reducing the use of pesticides, use only organic fertilizer. And year by year, we have been able to analyze the soil and to see very quick improvement of soil health. So since 2019, we have been able to improve the soil capacity to stock carbon and to increase the organic matter in the soil by 300% in 4 years. So it's huge. It works, you know. As soon as we start to accelerate this regenerative transition, it works quite well. So, of course, it was just one supplier. So now I would lie if I would say that all our suppliers have done this transition. It's wrong. But now for us, the idea is how can we scale up and how can we duplicate to other suppliers? We do have other projects for cotton. I could mention one around the Lake Chad in Africa. It's a bit different. On this one, we are more focusing on agroforestry. It's cotton production around the Lake Chad, which I guess you know is suffering from a severe drought. And the idea is how we could develop agroforestry to fight drought. And cotton production, mixing agroforestry practices, is a way to fight desertification in Lake Chad. It's not an easy project because before doing that, we need to train people, we need to finance people, and to ensure them that we will purchase the production every single year for a few years. So I would say it's a long journey. It's still small quantities. It's around 300 hectares. So for us, it's quite small. But again, the idea, how can we scale up and duplicate to other countries? So one of the lessons of these two projects is, you know, regenerative agriculture is a little bit the haute couture of agriculture. You can't copy-paste and duplicate everything everywhere. You have to adapt locally your practices. So what we have done in Turkey is not possible in Chad. And what we have done in Chad is very likely different of what we are going to do in India. So it's really haute couture, and you have to adapt to every single terroir and to find the right practices. But then it's not that easy to monitor everything and to define guidelines, because yes, they will be different everywhere. So we define some generic basic criteria, but each single project is different. So we have cotton. I could also quickly mention wool. We are collaborating with our wool supplier. It's mainly in Australia. I know that luxury industry is mainly sourcing wool from Australia, not only, but mainly from Australia. And again, in Australia, the challenges and the topics are a little bit different. It's more extensive grazing. They have the size of a European country, you know, the farmers. So the idea again is how we can use sheep grazing to fight again desertification in Australia, and it works by rotation. I won't deep dive too much in technical criteria, but it works. So wool, cotton, and the last but not least topic for us is leather. Leather for us is a bit more challenging because it's a co-product of another industry for us. We are just using the co-product of the meat and dairy industry. So first challenge for us is to get the full traceability, to know the farmers, and then to say what does it mean for bovine and ovine to regenerative agriculture. So we are again collaborating with suppliers to define guidelines. So yes, I will stop here, but I could deep dive into more detail if you want.
Thank you. This is very inspiring to hear, knowing that the Lake Chad has shrunken 90% in 50 years. So it's, I would like to follow up, and my next question would be, how does LVMH foster collaboration across its value chain to encourage suppliers and partners to adopt more sustainable practices?
Many ways to collaborate. First one is to challenge ourselves, and to do so, we have set a regenerative agriculture committee with farmer representatives, with government representatives, and with some competitors. And we meet every 2 times a year, and they challenge our strategy. Do we good? Do we bad? Do we do good? Do we do bad? So it's a way for us to define and to deep dive in our strategy, and we also have scientific people. And then it's collaboration with suppliers. Without suppliers and partners, nothing is possible. You know, coming back to the farmers, it's not easy for us because we are quite far from them. Our tier 1 supplier or tier 2 suppliers are mainly located in Italy, Spain. They are outfit manufacturers or fabric manufacturers, but farmers are more far away. They are tier 4, sometimes tier 5. So we need to collaborate with all the supply chain to be able to discuss with the farmers. It's a bit different. Just a quick illustration for wine and spirits. We have the direct contact with grapes grower. It's not the case in fashion. So we need to collaborate with the whole supply chain to be able to discuss with the farmer. And then we also need to collaborate with competitors, luxury, but not only luxury. We are member of an organization called OP2B, which is focusing on regenerative agriculture. Not only in fashion, but we do have some fashion competitors in this organization, and it's really key. Without collaboration, you know, LVMH, we are number 1 in luxury, but we are very small in fashion. Compared to my colleagues of Inditex or Nike or H&M, we are almost nothing. So we need to collaborate because nothing is possible with collaboration. And we have launched a program last year called Life is the name of our strategy. It's Life Business Partners Program. So we have decided to open all our tools to our suppliers. We also have a training center close to Paris dedicated to sustainability that we have decided to open to our suppliers. So if they want to come and to get training on sustainable design, on regenerative agriculture, it's open now to all our suppliers. So yes, the idea is to collaborate and to open all our tools to our suppliers.
Thank you very much. It's inspiring, and hopefully it will inspire others to follow in your footsteps. And I would like to turn to Mr. Burak Chachmak, who is a prominent figure in global fashion industry and the CEO of Saudi Arabia Fashion's Commission since 2021, leading efforts to preserve the kingdom's fashion heritage and foster local talent. Welcome. I would like to know how the Saudi Fashion Commission is driving sustainable fashion in the MENA region, and how do these initiatives address critical issues like land use, soil health, and degradation?
Yeah, I think fashion is a new sector for Saudi. It's a greenfield sector that's being built. Clearly, it's been a sector that had played a prominent role as a consumer to especially a lot of the luxury brands, but for many brands. So the consumption power is here, but the rest of the value chain was not being in place. So our role has been to look at the full value chain and to understand how it can be created in the country in a new way, so that we are learning from others' journeys and adopting solutions that are much more adapted to the future needs. This means that clearly we're looking for innovation, sustainability, and all of our efforts are driven by both innovation and education. So there are many things that we had to review and do, starting with understanding the local creatives and businesses that are in the country, and create programs that support them. So one of our first initiatives has been Saudi 100 Brands, where we have gathered hundreds of local brands in the past 3 years, going through a rigorous professional development journey that includes elements around business, but also practices around sustainability, as well as engaging with key industry leaders from all over the world, including some of the LVMH, some of the caring experts that are part of the mentors of our programs, that are guiding all of the brands to learn from their journeys and understanding what they can do in building their businesses in a sustainable way, both for the business side as well as for the environment. But beyond that, obviously, what was critical is to understand that there's not enough data in our hand about the sector's impact in the country. So we had to put some basics in place. We created a data hub. We published our second State of Fashion report, which includes a lot of sustainability data in it as well. You can find the annual report on fashionfutures.com. And by starting to monitor what's happening in the country, we are seeing who's part of the sector, what's happening, and what's the impact on the sector, and also what we can do from that learning to be able to manage some of the key impacts all the way to environmental impact. And we are now going deeper into infrastructural projects and research projects that's very much linked to sustainability, and that has also impacts linked to even supporting issues to basically combat issues of land degradation, etc. So we have basically launched our first award focused on innovation in sustainability across the value chain. This is open to any innovator that's Saudi living anywhere in the world, or any innovator in the country that has solutions that can provide ways to address issues related to sustainability of the fashion value chain itself. So it's open until December 9th. So if you know any researchers, startups, please encourage them to apply, because we are here to support them through that journey. But beyond that, we are looking at other things to really address both at the business side as well as on the consumer side. From a consumer perspective, we wanted to introduce the idea of being able to reuse your clothes, as it was mentioned earlier at the beginning. So we created the concept of a swap shop, partnering with key retailers in the country, making sure that we are basically bringing dead stock to avoid sending it into landfill. And we have done already 4 of these with the industry itself. It was a moment where people are basically exchanging their existing clothes, where there's no money exchange, only clothes are being exchanged to be able to keep it in life for a longer period. That followed with engagements with other entities in the country, such as Saudi Research, Saudi Recycling Investment Company, which is a PIF company focused on addressing landfill issues. With them, when we assessed the impact on landfill through textile sector, we found out that 1% of the existing disposal is coming from textiles. This is around 500 tons in the country. So there's a lot of opportunity to find ways of introducing circularity in that journey. Swap Shop was a small example, but we are engaging directly with Cirque to look at recycling facilities that's going to support textile-to-textile recycling. And we are engaging with key companies that are providing these solutions. And we are happy to engage with anybody out there that has especially recycling solutions to help with circularity of textiles to reach out to us. And we are very keen to implement these solutions on the ground and support both the country's ambition around sustainability, but also Fashion Commission's ambitions around circularity of the fashion sector in the country as well. In addition to that, of course, we are looking at some long-term solutions. So so one thing that we have done in the meantime with our data report, we introduced the first regional sustainability index. We are looking at the sustainability impact on climate change, social impact, leadership and governance aspects of all retailers and brands operating in the country. At the moment, it's voluntary. We are basically asking all the brands and retailers to do a survey providing all of the information related to these three topics for us to assess. And the first one was published in July. And we've seen that out of 100, today, in average, we are around 44% score, which is not very high, but it's our starting point. And we will be tracking the progress and provide solutions to the industry to address climate change, social impact, and governance support to be able to put solutions linked to sustainability into their businesses and help them engage through education and innovation as well. And then finally, we are just starting a project with the top research university in the region called KAUST. And we are basically opening a research center of excellence focused on materials. We live in an area where there's no natural raw material for textiles that are being produced, and we have no ambition to introduce these natural materials into the landscape of the country. Hence, we can address some of the challenges to provide some local solutions through innovation. So the research center is intended to look at alternatives from agricultural waste, recycled materials, all the way to biomaterials that can be supported through initiatives of the Fashion Commission, as well as our key partners in the country, to provide solutions to the rest of the world to look at alternative fibers that can be used instead of using farms and land and provide solutions that can help localize production as well.
Thank you so much for highlighting how different stakeholders play in promoting land-friendly practices. I would like to turn to Ms. Yuna Jones, who is the CEO of the Sustainable Fiber Alliance, an organization dedicated to promoting the environmental sustainability of natural fibers. Mrs. Jones, how does the Sustainable Fiber Alliance support sustainable rangeland management, herder welfare, and animal welfare in Mongolia's Kashmir sector, and how do these practices contribute to land preservation?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting us to talk about issues and challenges that related to land and fashion sector. It's not only important for the future of the global fashion industry, also it's important for survival of our herder communities and rangeland biodiversity going forward. So in terms of Mongolia, herders have long been, for millennia, had traditional ways of herding in line with human-coupled environment. They lived in harmony with land for many, many years. So over the last 3 decades or so, we know that the changes are accelerating in terms of land degradation, climate change, overgrazing. It's exasperating the way our herders and communities live. Many of the young people are moving into cities. They don't want to be herders. And that's changing the dynamics of herders and the woman, gender, and family life in rural herders and community livelihoods go everywhere. So where we work in Mongolia, Kashmir is a really key income source for herders. And it supports, in Mongolia, we have 1/3 of our population is nomadic herding communities. Their 80 to 90% of their income is supported through Kashmir. And Kashmir is a very volatile market, and it's important that, you know, this livestock sector supports in order of 12% of our country's livestock sector supports 12% of our GDP. However, this GDP, or how we define kind of, you know, the account or monitor, you know, the livelihood and our cultural heritage through numbers or unit GDP. And I think in a similar way that monitoring evaluation in the fashion sector and how we can, you know, what kind of impact, as you know, Sustainable Fibre Alliance is having for rangeland and the herder communities and the industry. It's something that we can talk about from our perspective and our impact, what we are having. So within SFA, we are implementing a standard that is supporting rangeland management across herder communities. Herder communities have a rangeland management plan to support rangeland management, making sure that they have carrying out rotational grazing, and they're making sure that animal health welfare is supported, and making sure that they have an appropriate ways of spotting if there is an illness, and how we can, you know, go through the life from birth into slaughter, how we can bring better animal welfare practices for herd animals. And also, we support people at the really core of how we're looking to reduce environmental impact, better health and welfare for their livestock, is through human behavioral change. And we often forget within fashion sector that, oh, we're going to reduce carbon by a certain %, and we're looking to, you know, all these changes in terms of, but however, we often forget that what is the human impact in climate change, how we can support herders and communities, how we can support indigenous knowledges and wisdoms in bringing change in the climate change dialogue. So really at the heart of how we support people is that we support herders and herder communities and empowering them and incentivizing them in bringing the land management, effective animal health welfare. But also it's really important to note SFA is working within the fibre sector. Across rangelands, our communities have multi-species mixed level of livestock, as well as goat. Our herders have yaks, camels, sheep, horses, and it's really important that now that we need to look into diversified ways of livelihood for herder communities, and they can't just support, you know, livelihood be supported by one product. You know, we need to make sure we all work together in ensuring that diversified income sources supporting herders, and also that young people and women is supported into having better livelihood in the rangelands. So all of those kind of work that we do in partnership with local communities. We work with community organizations. We work with local governments. We bring and ensure that really key thing, our work is that we bring better local ownership, because we can't, you know, I live in the UK, as you know, I'm from Mongolia originally. However, I wanted to make sure that we're not coming from a Western area to telling herders how to herd their livestock and how they do their work. So it's really important how we implement our standard is respecting their culture and the people, and putting our standard in a way that it supports them and empowers them. So that's how we operate in bringing our standard on the ground, and that's a really key tool for us bringing a change with indigenous herders and nomadic people in Mongolia.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank our distinguished panelists for their insight and innovative ideas on how to have a more land-friendly fashion and more sustainable practices in the industry. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you. It is time to welcome our second panel, International Collaboration and Innovative Solutions for Sustainable Fashion. I would like to welcome Mrs. Cristina de Avila, Mrs. Liliana Anovatsi-Jacob, and Mr. Alex Musembi. This panel will explore international collaborations and innovative solutions to boost sustainability in fashion, focusing on circular economy models, sustainable fibers, and policy initiatives. I would like to start with you, Mrs. Cristina de Avila. You're the head of the Global Environmental Cooperation and Multilateralism Unit at the European Commission's Environment Directorate, where you lead work on key multilateral agreements such as the UN Convention on Biological Diversity and UN Convention to Combat Desertification. I would like to ask you, how can regional policies such as EU legislations promote sustainable fashion and reduce the industry environmental impact, particularly on land and resources?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here today. I'm going to be talking about EU policies on textiles, which is not the main area of work in my department, but of those colleagues of mine that are working on circular economy and on eco-design for sustainable products. And then we can talk about more the international and multilateral aspects. So in the European Union, we started thinking about textiles some years ago because of the trends that we were seeing in consumption, also because of the environmental impacts. And it led us into this path, and we realized that we needed to get fast fashion out of fashion. And we also realized that this was a collective challenge because land degradation, pollution, deforestation, ecosystem loss are challenges that we are all facing. And how can we do that? What are the types of measures that we can put in place from a regulatory point of view in order to achieve this objective? So we have like three big groups of measures. One is measures on products, product-specific performance requirements. They can increase the durability of textiles, the reparability, recyclability, including fiber-to-fiber recyclability, and so on. And this type of measures are best placed to contribute to sustainable use also of natural resources, because it allows the textile to stay longer in the circle, in the use part of the circle, instead of being just thrown away or even recycled. So let it be natural fibers from animals or from plant origin or synthetic fibers. The manufacture of all those fibers has a non-negligible environmental impact. So the longer that they are in use, the best for our planet. Then the second group of measures is about information, better information to consumers and along the value chain. And here there are tools such as the digital product passport that could be an important part of these measures. And a third group of measures is for producers to take responsibility on the consequences of their activities. The use of natural resources, but also the substances used for production. We've heard about chemicals today in this event. And also the waste that their goods create. So we have in Europe extended producer responsibility schemes for batteries, for packaging, for electronics, and we're thinking also about applying this type of scheme also to textiles. And these type of measures can help support separate collection of textile waste, preparing to reuse, to boost in recycling, and have a different approach to design, which I think that's an area where we are all focusing on in these discussions today. So we developed some years ago the EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles. When we established these principles, we look at the entire life cycle of textile products, and propose coordinated actions on how to produce and consume textiles. The ambitions and the vision set in this strategy will have to be put into place through legislation. This could be the eco-design for sustainable products that is starting to work now on textiles, starting to work now, and it will progress in 2025, but also the Waste Framework Directive for all the waste-related aspects. And we have seen through measures that we have taken in other areas, such as, for example, in chemicals, we have already taken measures on textiles, that the measures that we take at European level have an impact globally. And this is not because we show the way or we show ways in which we can put these measures in place, but also because the supply chains are global. And when we have taken measures, for example, to ban carcinogens in textiles, we have on products that are placed on the European market, we are also influencing how these products are manufactured elsewhere in the world. And this brings benefits not only for consumers elsewhere in the world, where these products will also be sold, but also to the workers that do not longer have to be exposed to these carcinogenic chemicals, and to the environment, because of the emissions of these substances being reduced. So we know that regional, national action in global supply chains do make a difference, and make a difference worldwide.
Thank you so much. I'd like to turn to Mrs. Liliana, who's the chief of UNECE Forest and Bioeconomy section, which since 2014 leads UNECE's Forest for Fashion initiative, together with various partners, and has been promoting wood-based fibers as sustainable material alternatives. Can the integration of wood-based fibers in the fashion industry help mitigate climate change without degraded land or causing deforestation?
Thank you, Ina. Very good question, because that's a question that we get very often. Are we causing deforestation? Are we degrading land by using wood-based fibers? We tend to think that wood-based fibers are key to sustainable fashion. They're one of the answers, they're one of the fibers that can make a difference. Now, why is that so? Just for those who don't know, it's a very similar process to the paper making. It's a low-grade wood. You don't take your most precious wood and kill it for a garment. It's the byproducts, it's the low-grade wood. So that as the basis. A tree in itself is not irrigated. So we have that advantage over cotton. A tree in itself is not fertilized. It grows. So we do have that over cotton. A tree grows over many years, which means that the soil is nutrient rich over many years and not like an annual crop, as is, for example, cotton, is just using the nutrients of the soil. So there are a lot of advantages there. You mentioned deforestation. All this obviously is based on what foresters call sustainable forest management. Sustainable forest management means that you replant, or you plant before you harvest, and you make sure that there's a continuous cycle. You make sure that the forest is mixed and not a monoculture. So once you are there, once you manage your forest sustainably, and you are the owner of these trees, will you just cut them for the sake of cutting them and making a t-shirt? No, you won't. This is your source of income. Is deforestation from forestry an issue? Let me give you a number. 90% of deforestation is caused by, I guess we all know, agriculture. Forestry is not agriculture. Forestry is not even statistically measurable, not even detectable on remote sensing surveys done by FAO on the Global Forest Resource Assessment. So we are talking about a renewable source that gives us a fiber that is by itself biodegradable. It's a fiber that is also in its production cycle, and industry has made a lot of progress there using less water, can be used in closed loops, can be very much be a very, very good example for the circular economy because we can reuse what we do not use anymore. Again, I'm all for, and again, thank you to Mr. Thia for bringing this up. It is all about quality. It is all about choices. But unfortunately, we are not stopping to produce tomorrow. And as much as I agree with the luxury industry, and I would love to be able to afford the fashion you're selling, I can't. So I have to look for other choices there. And wood-based fibers, which are the beginning, so is a choice. It is a viable choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last panelist is Mr. Alex Musambi. He's an innovative ecopreneur and general manager of Africa Collect Textiles, recognized for advancing sustainable business solutions that prioritize environmental preservation and community development. Mr. Musambi, what role can local businesses play in transforming the fashion supply chain through sustainable practices, and how can they influence larger industry players?
Yeah, I will start by saying the topic has been the global north versus the global south, because then the global south, countries like Kenya, they have been neglected for long. What do I say by that? Kenya alone import more than 200 million kilograms of post-consumer textiles. And from various reports that I've read, is that Africa is the end of life of most of the materials, meaning the global north cannot claim themselves to be circular if Africa is left behind, if you know what I mean. So that means Africa lacks the basic infrastructure to collect, sort, and process textiles. And that's why we exist now, to be able to implement these processes. So one of the things we are doing is that the infrastructure has to be there. Policies has to be there. And there's a lot of topic currently going on whereby most of the government, they're saying now in Africa, ban the second-hand clothing. But then the question is, if you do that, what will be the ripple effect? Yeah, the ripple effect is that either people lose jobs in Africa. Also, I know Europe does not have that infrastructure to process its own textile waste, etc. So the most important thing is that if you ask me, should we ban the second-hand clothing? And my answer should be no, we cannot ban the second-hand clothing for now. So what needs to happen is that the global north needs to support Africa to be able to process all this material. But recycling does not start by us collecting the material. It is start from the design stage. What do I mean? For example, from how are our materials, how our clothes are made. If our materials are made out of mixed blends of different components, then to recycle it becomes very difficult. Whether we collect it, apart from what we are doing now, for example, with the artwork rag that you can see outside there, an element of upcycling, then it becomes very difficult in Africa then to collect this material and to recycle. So there has to be policies. And one of the policies can be maybe European, because I've read that Europe now has to set up the policies that 20 to 30% of the clothing being made has to be made from the recycled fibers. So that means if we collect down here, down the value chain, we can be able to sell that recycled component to processors, either in Asia or in Europe. Mm-hmm. So, and these are some of the solutions that needs to exist.
Thank you very much. It was a privilege for me to have these two panels today that emphasize on the need for policy changes and industry leadership in driving sustainable practices and land-friendly fashion. I would like to thank all of you for your patience. We have run a little bit later than expected, so thank you immensely. Please give a round of applause to our distinguished panelists. Thank you to UNCCD and UNEC for giving us the opportunity to have these very important discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give another round of applause to our wonderful speakers and our wonderful moderator, Ina Moja. Thank you very much for all this collaboration. My name is Ksenia Scanlon. I'm the Chief of Communications, External Relations and Partnerships at UNCCD. And my job is really to close this event, but also to announce a couple of very important takeaways, because we really hope that this event, the first that we've ever had at the UNCCD COP that deals with the topic of fashion, and many people thought it was a very frivolous idea to have something related to fashion at the UNCCD COP, but we've made it, and we would like to take it forward. And today, we're very pleased to launch a new publication, which is about land and fashion, unraveling the environmental impact of fibers. And I would like to really thank and acknowledge all the partners who have made it possible: the UN Environment Programme, UNEC, UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, Sustainable Fiber Alliance, Zoe Environment Network, Better Cotton, Africa Collect Textiles, and the PEFC. And more importantly, it has been generously financed by the European Commission. So this is a work of many hands, and we hope it's going to be a many of future collaborations, because UNCCD is now a formal member of the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, and we do intend to take this conversation forward with all of you, with governments, with private sector, with the industry associations, with the consumer associations, and all of us fashion lovers, I hope. With this, thank you very much, and I would like to now invite our colleagues and friends from the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists to introduce the upcoming event, which will be really leading us from very simple, aligned topics. We're talking a lot about Kashmir, we're talking about rangelands, and 2026 will indeed be celebrated as the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. And to tell us more about it and to welcome you to this reception, a joint reception between us, is Mr. Burma Dashbal, who is the co-chair of the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, IYRP. Please, sir. I don't know if he's with us or if he's making his way to the podium. Please, sir, welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I am going to speak in behalf of Burma. I am Enrique Michaud, also co-chair of the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists Global Alliance. And as the first time I am taking the floor, I want to first of all say thank you and congratulate the organization of the UNCCD, and also say thanks to the hosting country, Arabia Saudita, for this, for hosting us in this amazing and very beautiful place, and for all, with all my gratitude for this amazing event. Well, I don't want to talk too long and to repeat what was previously so brilliantly presented by the speakers during the day, but I just want to very briefly say why it's important an International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, and it's mainly to raise awareness about rangelands and pastoralists and the people living in these rangelands. Also to try to fill some gaps of information, as we already saw with the previous presentations, to make advocacy for policies and for policymakers, and finally to promote investments on this, not only this ecosystem, but also in the livelihoods, in the people, in the pastoralist people, and to recognize all this cultural heritage that they keep, all this traditional knowledge that will be very important to combat desertification, also to keep our biodiversity and for future scenarios of climate change. I don't want to talk too long. There is a roadmap to 2026 related to IYRP. There's also monthly themes, thematic, for the year, for running of the year, the 2026. I take the opportunity to invite you on this Saturday, the 7th, on the Food and Agriculture Pavilion at 5 p.m. for a side event where we will give more details about the road for 2026 and also the thematic months that are being proposed. And just by saying this, I want to open the floor for this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dashbal, and I believe that it is my pleasure to invite our following speaker, Mr. Paul Garecochea, who is the Director of Sustainable Supply Chains, Agricultural and Food Systems from the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, our partners and neighbors in Bonn, Germany.
Thank you so much, Chinya. Yes, I'm really honored to be here, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all. I think I'm standing between food and, try to be short. But anyway, I think it's important to mention that sustainable rangeland management is a very important factor for achieving land degradation neutrality, because rangeland cover half the world's land surface. That's what I learned today. So this is really important, and that's why I think we need to think about the threats to rangelands and how we can restrict grazing areas for pastoralists. I think this is key, and that's why also the German Federal Ministry is really supporting this issue and this theme. And we are really pleased that we can really feel the accelerated attention for rangelands and pastoralists through the International Year for Rangelands and Pastoralists. And I learned today, or last days, that the government of Mongolia for the next COP will take, will be the host country. So it will be important to take this issue into what is the UNCCD Rangeland Initiative. I think this is really a wonderful opportunity to come up with, a new vision, a new view in terms of the importance for rangelands in the future. So thank you so much, and I think you enjoy all the reception that will be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and once again, really deep thanks and gratitude for the long-standing support and leadership of BMZ and the government of Germany as host of the UNCCD Secretariat, and with this latest initiative as well. Last, but definitely not least, I would like to welcome Dr. Ismahan El-Wafi, who is the Executive Managing Director of CGIAR, to welcome us.
So let's hope I'm the last speaker before food. No, I am, definitely. So really, good evening, colleagues. It's really a pleasure to be with you here, to welcome you to the Rangeland Restoration Reception here at UNCCD COP16 in Riyadh. On this land day, we gather to focus on a vital yet often overlooked component of our planet ecosystem, which is a rangeland. And as Paul said, the rangeland is 54% of the Earth's terrestrial surface. So they are very, very important. What's happening is that we are losing more and more of them. Right now, they are really the life and livelihood of millions of of pastoralists, livestock keepers, hunter-gatherers, fisher, and farmers. They are very rich in biodiversity in general. They are harboring a multitude of plant and animal species and are integral of the cultural identity of many communities worldwide. But we are losing them. And as we are losing them, this makes really that we need to sustainably manage them. We need to protect them. We need to restore those rangeland, not just important for us, but really imperative. So today in this reception, I think it's an opportunity to come together. I know we're coming out of Fashion for Land, so you might not be the rangeland people, but still when we talk about collaboration and partnership or protection of ecosystem, restoration of ecosystem, we need to talk all together, not only of the people that are part of it, but to the broader stakeholder community. So there was a number of initiatives that really has been looking at rangeland, even before the International Year of Rangeland. There's the UNCCD Rangeland Initiative, which is driving global effort to combat desertification and promote sustainable land management. There's the Global Rangeland Alliance that fosters collaboration and knowledge exchange. There is a Global Rangeland Data Platform. There is the BMZ GIZ Supported Life System Project, which exemplify successful partnership in advancing sustainable rangeland systems, and us at CGR, which is the largest publicly funded international agricultural research centers with 15 centers, 9,000 employees across the globe. We're very much committed through ILRI, which is our International Livestock Research Institute, to really develop and implement innovative solutions to address desertification, land degradation, drought. And there is a number of initiatives that are very important, but we are very happy really with the collaboration with GIZ and BMZ to really do more in the next few years. So to close, I think it's, from me, it's more a call for action. We tend to separate stuff, fashion, rangeland, water, land, they're all together. They're not separated out there. And we need to think nature, and we need to think, do we understand nature? Definitely not. What we know about it, maybe it's 1% of what's happening out there. It's millions and billions of species, and those species have been living together, and they have been working mostly around synergies, so they build on each other. So my call is for action for all of that, not each one single, but rather that we understand nature, and that's where we need science and innovation, and mimic nature. If we want to do something, even at the industrial level, we need to mimic nature and see how nature does it without harming the other species around. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ismahan. And indeed, you were the last speaker, and I think we've had a lot of food for thought after all the inspiring interventions, and I believe the reception is now ready, so please enjoy, network, and continue the collaboration for fashion, for land, for rangelands, for water, and for all the things that sustain us here. Once again, have a wonderful evening. Thank you.